Hi, I'm Steve Weiner. You have no idea who I am, but I've been watching the Mike Chisholm show because no one knows who he is either. La, la,
la. Welcome once again to the Letterman Podcast. My name is Mike Chisholm. All right, so this week we have an episode that is going to be released that is done in real time. Actually, it's exactly 1 week after the conversation that you're about to see with Robert Morton and Alex Bennett took place. But this was not meant to be our episode. We've got a bunch of episodes in the can that we've been doing that we've been kind of going through while I've been getting back into the swing of things, but ripped from the headlines, as we all know, a lot of stuff going on in the world of late night television right now. And I'll tell you, the conversations have been fast and furious with all sorts of people within this world. So anyway, Alex Bennett, who we've had on the show here at least once, I think a couple of times, actually, now that I think about it, radio legend Alex Bennett. He loves it when I call him that. He and I were going to record an episode for his show on Gabnet. Alex is still, into his 80s. You can never take the broadcaster out of pure broadcasters like Alex. That actually comes up in the conversation today with he and Morty. But we were going to record an episode that I thought we were just going to talk about. I saw Fantastic Four last night, and at the premiere, and also the state of late night. He asks me. I'm a frequent guest on his Monday pop-up show, and I thought that he and I were going to have this talk one-on-one for Gabnet about all the things going on in late night. He was going to get my take of it. We were going to go. So we were getting the audio levels ready. And as everything was coming into place, a friend of mine returned my call. It was Robert Morton. He returned my call, and it happened to be happening right then. Alex actually has a past with Morty that actually even predates Late Night with David Letterman. And it turns out, as Morty was growing up, he was a fan of Alex Bennett. They've known each other. We hung out at Rick Shecky's funeral together for a little while, and it was good. So he happened to be calling at that time. And so I'm like, hey, Alex, hold on. I gotta take this just to let Morty know what was happening. So I let him know what was happening. And he's like, well, heck, zoom me in. And that's what we did. We zoomed him in. And here comes Robert Morton coming into the conversation. And we ended up, of course, talking about what is going on in the world of late night television right now. Morty gave us his take, and he gave us full permission to use this as an episode, or if articles need to be written or anything like that. He was, Robert Morton. I'm unabashedly. I've talked about my regard for Morty. I always had it. This is one of those things where people say, don't meet your heroes. I, of course, have a different take on that. People are like, don't meet your heroes. You're going to be disappointed. I've never had that mentality, because early on, when I started meeting some of my first favorite musicians and things like that growing up, I adopted, somebody told me this, and I forget who it was, but somebody told me, they gave me the advice, hey, don't have any expectations. Meet your heroes. Go for it. Just have no expectations whatsoever, and just enjoy the experience for whatever it is. Even if they're a little bit cold to you or something like that. No problem. That's okay. It's all right for people to have a bad day. It's all right for people to be whatever they are. Morty is a guy that I always looked up to and had regard to. I talk about even my style to this day: jackets and jeans and a t-shirt, or jackets and jeans with I took that style from Morty. I always thought Morty was such a cool cat, and then I meet him, and he's even cooler than I would have hoped he was. And so many people in the Letterman world and in the entertainment world absolutely love Robert Morton. And so having him come on here and talk about what we've been talking about here the past few weeks on the cold open intros, if you want to call it that, what is going on with Stephen Colbert, with Late Show, and the coincidental timing of all the bigger events that are happening. We talk about that here. He flat out talks about how he doesn't think that it's even possible that Colbert's show was not profitable. Very, very cool insights from a guy who has been there, done that, and was one of the architects of building this franchise for CBS. Super cool to have him there. Super cool to kind of hang back. And people who listen to the show or watch this show because they love the Letterman content but hate the host, and I know you're out there, this one's for you. Alex Bennett actually asks a lot of the questions, and don't get me wrong, I get a couple in there as well. But I just loved watching these guys reconnect with each other, and love the idea that Alex was able to ask Morty some of these questions that he'd wanting to ask him for a while. So after everything was said and done, Alex and I kind of looked at each other and said, well, he's going to release these as a couple of GabNet episodes. So to find radio legend Alex Bennett on broadcasting still, he is still around. Go to GabNet. And you will find him there. And then we're going to release this as a Letterman podcast. So it was one of those things that just the spur of the moment of it was beautiful. I'm going to just drop right in to where we made the connection and made it happen just because I like that kind of stuff. So it might seem disjointed as the episode begins, but you are about to see a very, very cool conversation with my friends, Alex Bennett, radio legend Alex Bennett, and one of my favorite people in the world. I view him as a mentor, uber producer. Executive producer is not enough to describe Robert Morton in my eyes. Uber producer, Robert Morton. Enjoy. Okay, you start recording.
Hey,
Morty says hi,
We're
Alex.
starting to record it. This is Mike Chisholm. Hello, Morty.
Oh, hold on. Okay. Okay, say that again, Alex.
Hello, Morty.
Oh, he can't hear you. I don't think he can hear you, buddy. Oh, I wish we could. We should do this. We should do this in real time.
Yeah, that's Bob Morty.
Oh, okay. I'm going to send you the Zoom link right now. I'm going to send Morty the Zoom link. He's going to jump in.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll send it to you right now, bud.
This is Mike Chisholm,
Okay,
by
bye.
the way, who runs the Letterman Podcast. And Bob
be
Morton, who
funny.
used to be the producer of the David Letterman show, is supposedly going to be calling us on Zoom. You did send him the link, right?
I'm going to send it to him right now, bud.
Oh, okay. Send it to him.
It'll take me just a second. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is hilarious. Oh, it's
Yeah.
so funny. I swear to God, Alex, I did not engineer this. This
Yeah.
was not. This is 100% spontaneous, which says to me there are no coincidences, and that's always a good thing.
He rang your phone, right?
He phoned me right as you and I were about to start,
Yeah. Okay.
and this is going to be a lot of fun.
Okay. I hope he gets it, and we can.
I hope he gets it too.
And we can have him join our little gathering here.
Absolutely.
I haven't seen. I think I saw Morty was at Shecky's thing.
Yes, that's where we hung out with him all
that's-
together.
It's the last time I saw Morty. The last time I saw Morty before that, I think it was a couple of times up at the Letterman offices. And then, well, I'll tell him when he calls. We'll remember
Yeah.
the first time we ever met, if he ever calls here. But
Yeah,
anyway.
just give me a second. I just gotta copy the link and text it to him.
Oh, you haven't done it yet.
No, it's all happened it all happened at once, buddy.
I can pause this recording till you get all this done.
I don't know. I think it's kind of fun showing people how the sausage gets made, and you can edit if you'd rather. But if you
No.
don't want to edit, I totally understand that too.
I don't edit anything. I'm too lazy.
I know, me
these
neither.
days.
That's the problem with my show.
I'm too lazy. Have you sent it to him?
Copy link and send to Morty.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so great.
Do you know? Are you sending it to him by email?
No, texting it to him.
Texting it to him. Okay. Because
Yeah,
if you
it's
do
just
it by
okay. This
email-
should be. He should have it now, and
Yeah.
we should be good. Oh my God, this is so exciting to me. I've wanted to do this mashup for a while.
Well, you're so excited, it's ridiculous.
I know, I get that way. That's part of my
Here we
charm
go.
and annoyance as host of the Letterman Podcast. The enthusiasm is
Here
boundless.
we go. And
There we go. Oh my God, this is so great.
Morty.
Now you boys, how are you? Nice to see you guys.
Yeah,
Hello,
well,
Alex.
Let me take something off of here because I've got Chisholm's name covering your face. There we go. Now we're okay.
There we go.
Bob
How are you,
Morton,
Alex?
ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, Morty was the producer of the David Letterman show for a long time, actually.
Yep. 14 years total.
Late show.
I was with them.
Rather late night, and then later on with the late show. But the
Yep.
first time, you want to tell the first time we ever met?
Well, the first job I ever had in television, one of the first jobs I ever had in television was I sold Manhattan cable TV door to door.
And you were doing it with Stu
Stu Smiley.
Smiley.
Stu Smiley and I used to sell door to door.
Right.
We were based. Manhattan Cable had their offices. I think this
think it was
HBO has it now
23rd
on
Street.
23rd.
Yeah.
23rd off Lex, and we used to meet in a phone room, and then they'd give us leads, and we'd go out and knock on doors. And where were you? You were on 14th
I
Street.
was
Were
on
you living?
14th Street. Yeah.
Was it the same building as Bernie Getz?
Absolutely.
Okay, I remember
in fact,
that.
he wound up renting my apartment.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
And what they used to do is it was before anybody had cable in Manhattan.
They went door to door. Yeah.
You had your 13 VHF channels, you had fuzzy UHF channels. And what they did was they would set up a television with the cable feed in the lobby, and we would just sign people up who never saw cable TV. But of course, Midnight Blue was the first thing that everybody wanted.
Which
They all
I produced.
of course, that's
Yeah.
why I say it. And Midnight Blue was, the first X-rated show ever on television.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted Midnight Blue, except if you got a demo. They used to call them the demos. If you got a demo on Water Street in Manhattan, that was in Chinatown, and there were two big buildings in Chinatown, and they couldn't get anything in Chinese. So on cable, they had these Chinese soap operas and these Chinese channels. It was like printing money.
Yeah,
you would stand in the lobby.
You told me in retrospect that it was easier for you. That was the biggest sale you made were the Chinese stations.
Oh, the Chinese
And
was the
then
greatest.
Midnight Blue was the second biggest.
Midnight Blue was the second biggest. Yep.
Yeah.
And I first met Alex knocking on doors.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to listen to him on radio, for God's sakes. I knew who he was, obviously. I used to listen to you when I was, in college.
This all lives with the statement I make that I used to be a big shot. But go ahead.
Alex, I just read about you in a book, Alex.
What book?
There's a book out on stand-up comedy. I forget the guy's name. I have it upstairs. I'll go get it before we're finished.
Yeah.
And he talks about, being on your show and how you were a big promoter of comedy in San Francisco for so many years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very nice reference.
But
I was thinking of you last night.
You know who else used to listen to my show and mentioned it to Bill Maher? But I'm a little upset by it. Gutfield. You know this guy Gutfield?
Yeah.
This ridiculous right-wing bozo.
Well, I don't know if I dislike
he
him.
used to listen to me every morning.
Everybody did. Everybody did.
I don't
know if I dislike Gutfeld because he's such a right-wing nut or because he's unfunny.
That's another part of it.
There's nothing funny about him.
But he thinks he is.
Oh, he thinks
and so therefore he plays funny.
Yeah, he's been anointed the king of late night.
Marjorie and I today, we're just watching a lot of old Lettermans. We find Marjorie never watched the Letterman shows because she didn't get to stay up that late, right?
Yep.
I've been playing them for her, and she agrees with me that Dave was endlessly entertaining.
Endlessly. And, unfortunately, it was only an hour a night that he was endlessly entertaining.
Yes, right.
But it was the hour that counted.
Wasn't it was an hour and a half though, wasn't it, on late night? No, maybe.
No, it was always an hour.
It was always 1 hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
But man, you were one of the early producers on that show, and then you went to CBS with him.
Right. First 4.5 years, Barry Sand was the producer, and I was a segment producer. I was the number 2 producer.
Yeah.
And then I took over and ran the show for the rest of the time for 9 more years, 10 more years.
Yeah.
So,
and so
it's funny. I watched last night what I consider one of the best interviews I've ever seen Letterman do.
What was that?
Which one?
It was on that Busy Phillips does a show on the Home Shopping Network.
Yep.
And her sidekick is a woman named Casey St. Ange, who was Letterman's assistant for many years. And
we've had her on our show.
And she's a lovely woman, and she roped Letterman into doing this home shopping there. You know, he'll do anything if he's invited these days.
Really?
No, not anything, Morty. Not anything.
Oh, he better do you. If he's doing her, he better do you.
Yeah, he better.
I'll send that to Tom. See what he says.
Yeah.
But it was one of the most revealing interviews, and he was totally taken aback. Nothing was planned. It was very good.
By the way, I'll tell you a story about Dave, though, that we'll get to. Dave, I was up at the studio one day to see Shecky, because Shecky, is my lifetime friend.
Of course.
And Dave walks by and sees what's going on, and later on he comes into Shecky and says, "Was he bothering you?" He said, "That guy is on late night cable on that sex show."
That's funny.
Yeah, he was bothered by that. He thought that I was, a troublemaker, right?
Oh, that's funny. That's so funny. Oh my God.
Yeah, but that's Dave, I guess.
But something. Had he known, and I'm sure he knows who you are very well, and I'm sure he would respect you tremendously, because you're the quintessential broadcaster. I mean, and I think Letterman respects broadcasters more than anybody. I think it's why he loves Jimmy Kimmel, because Kimmel, filled radio time for so many years.
Kimmel also understands what that show demands.
Yes.
And he does it, he obviously being influenced a great deal by Letterman.
Yes, very much so.
But he does it well. And I think that's the important part. I don't think a lot of the other people do it well. I don't think Fallon does it well. And I don't know about Colbert. Everybody's saying how wonderful he is, but he did a lot of politics and things like that. But quite frankly, I think Jimmy does more in that area than anybody. He's been after Trump relentlessly.
And he gets things done, what he did with the healthcare and all that stuff when his kid was sick. I mean, Jimmy is a highly, how could I say, respected world citizen. He's a decent guy.
Yeah.
And so is Stephen. Stephen's a great guy. They're all great guys.
Colbert's fine, but he wasn't my cup of tea.
I can't wait to see what happens with Stephen once May comes around, because I think about him as a correspondent on The Daily Show and how mischievous he was and clever in that mischief.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious what he is going to be like when he doesn't have the mantle of CBS's late night show, premier late night show, which wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for the franchise, wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for Dave and company. I can't wait to see what he does after the gloves come off.
When you talk, yeah, go ahead.
I think he's gonna totally make a shift. My prediction.
Me too.
I think he sees himself as a Broadway performer. I bet you he does a Broadway show. I could see him in a Sondheim.
He did Sondheim a lot.
Yeah, I could see him in a Sondheim revival of some. If he's too old for company. I could see him doing Sweeney Todd. I could see him doing something. I think he.
But
I'd go see him on Broadway. I would totally go go and pay a ticket.
As would I. I'd see Stephen in anything. I adore him.
I'll tell you though, if I were Netflix, if I were the head of Netflix, who's they got more money than they know what to do with. They puke money. They should just say, we want to rent the theater. We want you to keep doing the same show. Come over to Netflix.
Yeah,
and do it for
that's
great. And they can afford it. They can afford it more than CBS could afford it.
You're absolutely
well. Then
right.
they'd have the Ed Sullivan Theater to do whatever they want to do. I mean, if they got them 2 or 3 nights a week or something like that, or they would have a wonderful venue that they could then put some of their specials onto. I mean, they could use for stand-up specials. Look how into stand-up specials they are right now. You'd have the Ed Sullivan Theater, which would be perfect for a stand-up special.
Yeah,
you're right. They should buy the theater.
Yep.
They should buy. Hey, look, they do that they're doing it with movie houses. They bought the Paris Theater in Manhattan.
Yep.
They bought the theater that in the Pacific Palisades, which was a brand new theater. They bought that.
Netflix bought them.
They bought them with the sole purpose. I'll tell you why they bought them.
Yeah.
So that all of their, in order to qualify for the Academy Award nominations, their films have to have a commercial release in a theater for X amount of weeks.
I think it's one day, actually.
Is it one day, really?
One
wow.
day. Yeah.
So they bought all these theaters just to release their films that they've produced, so they're Academy eligible.
But I
So
think
they,
they've got more money to do shows with than CBS has.
oh
You
God,
know?
yes, God, yes.
But
You
you know,
know,
you were asking Mike about what Colbert might do or not be able to do in the next 10 months.
Yep.
South Park already did it. They signed a $1.25 billion contract with CBS. And as soon as the ink wasn't even while the ink was dry, they did this episode that was completely the biggest takedown of Trump I've seen.
oh
You
God.
know.
It was so good.
An animated Trump with a small penis, and they didn't even blur out
In
the
bed
small
with the
penis.
devil.
In bed with the
Satan.
devil. I mean, just amazing. So it really, that gives you a certain freedom that you didn't have before, you know?
So true.
And
So true.
He's got freedom now to do almost anything. And what are you going to do? Fire me? You know.
You know something, and that was, Letterman invented himself when his morning show was, as Mike knows well, when his morning show was canceled, all bets were off. He just
Yep.
went crazy and did whatever he wanted, and that's when he became the late night David Letterman. We always looked at those last days of his morning show as the pilot for the late night show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Colbert has that same chance. I don't
Totally.
know if he's going to squander it, but but he's got a great opportunity to become a voice, become a legitimate voice, and nobody's going to stop him. I mean, look, when Letterman got canceled, when Letterman not got canceled, but when he decided to leave CBS. And that's when he made fun of all the executives, and he did the executive of the week, and he was beating up on Warren Littlefield and John Agolia, and he had their pictures framed on the set, and that's when all hell broke loose, and they were fantastic.
Did you feel? I often tell Marjorie, that my wife, that because she's not familiar that much with Dave, as I said, because she didn't stay up that late. She didn't have any life before me, in other words. But anyway, I told her, I said, the Late Show was infinitely better. Excuse me, the Late Night was infinitely better than the Late Show, because Dave said, to hell with it. We can do anything here. The executives are asleep by now,
Yeah.
And then when it went to CBS, he had to look a little better. The set was everything was more formal, and he didn't have that same loose quality.
No, but he eventually got to that point.
It was a great show.
And something, I'll take some of that responsibility. That wasn't all about his performance. I remember when we got the show at CBS, I had a talk with him, and I said, "Look, we're in the big room now. We're not in the lounge anymore."
Yep.
And I think at 12:30 we celebrated failure. When somebody fucked up, we took a shot of that guy.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the famous one, and Hal Gurney and all his genius. The famous one was when Kmar the magician was doing some trick where he had to levitate Letterman, and he was on this flat table that was masked by some some fabric drapery, and he had to press a foot pedal to make Letterman levitate. And he did it the first time, he's pushing the pedal, and it doesn't work. And he does it again, and you see him actually stepping on a pedal. And Hal gets the shot and then follows the cable to the outlet where it's not plugged in.
I've never
And
seen that.
and it saved the bit. It made the bit worth every penny.
Yep.
It was great.
Well, what you
but
built-
but,
what you-
but we were celebrating failure.
Well, yeah. What I was going to say, what you had on that show was that you could try anything, and even if it failed, it was entertaining.
Yeah. It was more entertaining.
Yeah, you couldn't
Yeah.
do that though when you went to CBS because
No, we did it to an extent, but it was like Johnny Carson did it. If a joke failed in his monologue,
Yeah.
he brought attention to it.
Yes.
And I think we wanted to grow up a little bit, but we reverted back. We reverted back to infancy.
you know a little bit about the Carson show. Didn't he build in a bad joke so that he could do that? so that he could.
You know something, I've never heard that before, but it makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Yeah,
That was Dave's theory. Dave's theory was that every once in a while he would put in a bit of a dud, so they could start playing T for Two, and Johnny would actually start to enjoy the celebration
yeah.
of, the taking it out to that perspective.
Well, he was
also
the best
think-
at recovery. He was the best at it.
Yep. Yep.
Tell people about the 3-joke deal at the beginning of the show. Letterman on late night never told more than 3 jokes.
Well, what happened was, and it predated me as the producer. It was when Barry was the producer. When we first went on the air, we were partially owned by Carson Productions.
Right. First half hour, I think, or something like
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, because he was giving up that half hour. That was his. Originally, the Tonight Show was 90 minutes, blah, blah, blah. And then the Tomorrow Show and all that nonsense. But they sat us down. They sat Barry down. And they said, look, here are the rules. You can't have a monologue. You could do jokes. He could do 3 jokes. But a monologue is owned by Johnny. Johnny is the master of the monologue. They said we couldn't have horns in our band because Johnny has horns in his band. They said they then went through a list of guests that we couldn't have. And they were, Stephen Eady and Don Rickles and Joe Williams
But not Kmar the magician.
not Kmart, and as a result, we forged an identity from our restrictions with the music. We had to have rock music, and we hired Paul, and the rest is history. We had to have he didn't do a monologue. Eventually, he got to doing a monologue, and they kind of ignored it because it was a different kind of monologue.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they gave us, and obviously we didn't want those guests. We weren't having,
But yet, didn't those limitations define who you were?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That gave us our identity. That's what made the show. We were forced to find the watermelon champion grower and the whatever it was from whatever state fair. Those were our stars.
Shout out to Madeline Smithberg on that one, because that's what she did early on.
I was just going to give Madeline that shout out.
Yeah.
She was the best at it. She was the best at it.
Yeah.
So funny.
That's a standard question that I ask one of the writers from the early days on our show is do you prefer the open field or do you prefer the parameters? Like I asked that to Steve O'Donnell. And the thing is, when they give you these rules, it almost makes it better for the writers, because then they can go and find ways to stay within the rules that are clever and more creative. And it actually is it's an advantage.
And less derivative.
I found that when I was given a set of rules, what I did, excuse me.
When was the last time you were given a set of rules? Come on.
When I first went to one station, I was given a set of rules. Back
MCA?
in San
WMCA?
No, San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Everybody always wanted to see how much music they could make me play. And I didn't want to play music. In fact, I had usually put in my contract that I wouldn't play music. And the reason wasn't that I hated music, but that I just didn't want to be strapped down to being a disc jockey.
Yeah.
And so this one station said, they tried to get really mean with me, and they said, we want you to play as many records per hour as you possibly can. So in one case, I said, I've been asked by the management of this station to play more music. So what I'm doing, we're in stereo. On one channel, you're going to hear the show. On the other channel, you're going to hear nothing but music. And I did that. I played music on one channel and did my show on the other.
Oh, is that funny? That's
fantastic.
And
I'm going to move out of the sun because I can't see you. Hold on one second.
No problem.
Yeah.
Can you still see me?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
clear as a bell.
Now I can see you guys. All right.
And they then after the show came in, he said, you can't do that. That will confuse people who don't have stereo radios. I said, screw them. I said, you wanted music, you got music.
That's funny.
Did
you have to follow a playlist, or did you produce the music to fit the conversation?
I can't even remember. It might have been a playlist,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then I got it again at the next station I went to, And I said, look, I don't play music, okay? And they said, well, we'd like you to play some music. Play at least 3 or 4 records an hour. And I went, I don't want to do that, but I'll try. So what I did is I went out. There are records that are like anywhere from 60 to 90 seconds long. I mean, actual records by big groups and so on. The Beatles even did some that were that short, okay?
Just to give you the segue.
So I got all the short records I could find, and I said, we're now going to play them this hour. And I managed to play in an hour something like 30 records.
That's funny.
And I then, from then on, said, this is your most music morning program. And I just,
That's great.
But I did everything I could to bend the rules so that we could get away with it, and so I could just let the audience know basically I'm pissed,
It's interesting that talent would do those 90-second things.
Yeah.
That's when during the days when you could get talent to do things.
Well,
Before you'd get them into a station and you'd just have them record every promo and those were the days.
Well, I grew up in radio where I was kind of being asked to be an entertainer. You had the disc jockey, he did jokes and he did bits and he did things like that. And then he played a record, and whatever. And so that was the radio I grew up in.
Yeah.
And that was the radio I didn't want to give up,
Nope.
So,
well, you were great at it. That's also.
I thank you, Morty. From you, it's a compliment. Ladies and gentlemen, on the screen you see Mike Chisholm, and below him is the former.
I should always be above him. What kind of billing is below
the
Mike
executive
Chisholm?
producer of the David Letterman shows, Late Night and
Late Show.
Late Show. I never can say this two at the same time. I get mixed
Well,
up.
it's interesting that I just read this and I never knew it, that when Colbert took over, he added a the.
Yep.
So with Letterman, it was always a Late Show with David Letterman. There was no the. And Colbert added a the. I didn't know that until this week.
I guess it worked better on the marquee or something because it's above the is above the.
Everybody called it The Late Show.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't like that Colbert did here in New York is the marquee. He put a whole sign that went down the side of the building that said Colbert.
Yeah, it's a little bold.
I mean, David what?
I'm trying to run down
that's
a
Mike
rumor.
Chisholm, by the
Apparently,
way.
Worldwide Pants still owns the copyright of Late Show, and they lease it to CBS. And I'm trying to figure out if that's the case, or when they added if that is still the case or not.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Morty, about the title Late Show. When first time I was in New York, which was when he sold me cable, when Morty sold me cable. And by the way, that's Mike Chisholm I'm talking to now. There was a show that went on after all the newscast, and it was called The Late Show, and it was a movie. They played a movie.
Yes.
And then after the movie, they had The Late Late Show.
That's right.
So I
That's
don't
right.
know. Could Dave possibly own that title?
Well, I'll take a little credit here.
Mm-hmm.
When we I grew up, as you know, in New York, and I remember The Late Show and The Late Late Show.
Yeah.
So when it came time to come up with a name for the new show when we moved to CBS, I had suggested The Late Show, and then when we got the 12:30 slot, I had suggested The Late Late Show. Just remembering those days of the movie blocks. And my prediction now is, with Colbert leaving and Paramount, stepping up, and I think David Ellison is quite the cinephile.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to bring back a movie block.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to give up. I don't think they're going to give up that revenue to the stations.
I don't think so either.
Paramount has an incredible library,
Yeah.
I would
Yep.
imagine.
Yeah.
And I would think they want to monetize everything they have.
Well, they might run some of their shows that they run on CBS late night,
Yep.
which they used to do at one point. But
And if they curate it properly, it could be a winner.
well, it's certainly cheaper
Yep.
than doing Colbert. I mean, I don't know how much Colbert is costing them now because they claim they were losing millions a year.
Colbert is, well, I think they're definitely exaggerating the losses. I think, Colbert costs about 100 million a year to do, and they pay him, and they pay him between 10 and 15 a year. And I heard this from a very good source who was a former chairman of the network, so you could do the math.
Yeah.
And they say that it's absolutely impossible that they're losing the kind of money that they say they're losing.
Okay, so you say they spend about 100 million a year on that show?
100 million on production and between 10 and 15 to pay him.
Netflix poops that much money.
Exactly.
You know?
Well,
Look,
the late night show used to be considered the cheap show, right? That's the whole reason why it started in the first place.
it still could be a cheap show. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah.
If they truly had in mind keeping that show, and this is the only argument I have that's against the fact that it's all political, because I do think it is mostly political. Why wouldn't they say, look, and he has more writers than any of the late night guys.
Yeah.
And why don't they just say, all right, cut your writing staff by 75%.
Yep.
He has like at least 18, 20 writers on that show.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he's got I could be wrong, but I know he has a tremendous writing staff. Mike, you might
How
know
big was
better.
your writing staff?
I think we had probably the height that I was there, 12 or 13.
I think it stayed at that pretty much the whole run for the most part.
Yeah.
So that's considerably lower than Colbert.
Yes, very
Yeah.
much so.
Let me ask you this, though. How much is that theater costing them a year?
I don't know the numbers. I did look up yesterday out of curiosity. I remember that CBS paid very little for the theater and the office.
Well, they
building.
owned it, right?
No, they didn't own it.
didn't?
They used to own it when it was Studio 50, and then Studio 50 was renamed the Ed Sullivan Theater. And after the Sullivan run, they had sold it.
Oh, okay.
Originally, I think it was Reeves Teletape that bought it. Then they sold it to this old, crazy hippie guy that I think was living in the theater. They called him the captain or the wizard. I remember going there for the first time, and I was a page at that theater. And I remember going there the first time when we wanted to see the theater, and he had to approve. He owned it, and it was a mess. It was a real mess. It was always rat infested. Probably still is. It was when we were there.
You had about a couple of inches of water all over on the floors, and
Yep. It was a real mess. And CBS at the time, so this is 1992, 91, 92, I guess. They paid $4 million for the theater and the office building.
so they bought it back.
They bought it back
Okay.
from the wizard or the captain or whatever the hell he called himself.
Yeah, because you
And-
wouldn't want to do that much work on something you don't own.
No,
Yeah.
that's true. And, and look, part of Colbert's demise, I think, was, it was a perfectly well renovated theater. I mean, and up until the day I left, and I would assume the whole run, it was very well cared for. Colbert came in and they redid the roof, and they did that, they opened up the upper balcony that we had closed off, and, they built a very elaborate set.
Yeah, a lot of technology. A lot of technology.
Yeah, a lot of technology, and that's expensive. You need people to run that
But
stuff.
you don't think CBS then is losing? They said tens of millions a year.
40
on
is
that
the
show.
number they said.
40
40
million?
was the number they said for all of late night.
Oh, for all of late night.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's a little different.
40 million was the number they used for 11:30 and 12:30.
Well, I don't know how that current late show or what they changed the name of it. I can't remember what the name is.
After
now.
midnight, yeah.
After
You know
midnight.
Taylor
something?
Tomlinson.
It was so stupid of them to put that show in there.
Yep.
Because what they wanted was a show with no writers, and that show, every word was written for every one of the comedians on the panel, as well as for Taylor, who's very funny. And most of the comedians they used were funny people, but they had every line scripted. You could see them referring to the cards on their podium.
Yep.
It used to make me crazy. I wrote Judy Marmel, who was the executive in charge, who was Taylor's manager. when it first premiered, I said, "Here are my notes," because I like her and she's a nice woman. She never answered me back. She never never acknowledged when I sent her the notes.
Well, what do
But I
you
said,
know? What do you know?
Exactly. What the fuck do I know? So I said, you got to get them off of that. I said, plus, what do you need writers on that show for? It should be let them ad lib. If they're funny,
Yep.
get the funniest people and let them go.
Well, if you're bringing out a bunch of comics, which used to be my thing, you
Yeah.
know, I used to load my studio with like 5 comics at a time. You just let them go. They're there to
Yep.
work for you, not for you to, you know.
Look, I'm a disciple of the Tomorrow Show. When we used to have one guest the show, we used to prepare Tom appropriately, but we had a tiny staff.
Mm-hmm.
We had maybe 1 or 2 researchers, 1 or 2 bookers.
I didn't know you worked that show.
Oh yeah, I think my credit at the time was associate producer, and then I became a talent producer. I don't remember, but it was the first network show I ever did.
Yeah.
And I adored that show, and I adored him. We had
I
free
would
reign.
say, would you agree with me on that? I think Tom Snyder, one-on-one, was the best communicator with the television audience that I've ever seen. If you watch him, he never takes his eyes off the camera.
No doubt about it. He knew how to create an intimacy.
I mean,
He had all the right tools in place.
Some people say that Johnny, on the other hand, conversely, was the opposite, that he never looked at the camera or the audience. He looked to either side. And
Well,
that
but he also was smart because he used looking at the camera as a device, and that's the difference between a comedian and a broadcaster.
Well, what I'm saying is I think, felt that he didn't want the public the audience out there to feel an intimacy with him. They wanted to look at him and appreciate him. It was a different kind of way of sucking the audience in.
Yes, yeah. To a comedic effect mostly.
Yeah.
He would use that close up when he had to,
But
when the
Snyder,
animal, when the monkey peed on his shoulder, that's when he would look at the camera and give a take, you know?
Yeah, the nod and the wink was a very powerful thing that Johnny used.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think I say to my wife all the time when we're watching old Lettermans, I said, admit
Marjorie?
it. Marjorie. That's
Oh,
right.
okay.
You remember? Oh, Marjorie. Yeah. She. I told her. I said, he's endlessly entertaining. I said he doesn't even need a guest. He could just sit there and talk.
Yeah.
And I said that's what broadcasting is about. That's what I wanted to do in my life and how I tried to achieve it. That I wasn't just doing an interview show or whatever, that I was doing a program. In fact, I use the term program all the time. I never use the term show because Jack Benny called his show a program.
Really? No kidding.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Actually,
because I remember we used to call on the Tomorrow Show, we used to call it the broadcast.
Yeah.
It was never a program or a show. It was, all right, we got to do the broadcast tonight. And,
well, I watch people on MSNBC and they go on today's show, and I'm going, show? Are you going to tap dance at any point?
I know.
here?
I hate that they call news shows. That's wrong.
Didn't Tom call on the Late Late Show? Didn't he call it a simulcast? And I love that because of the radio and the he made up a term. I forget what it was, but he did definitely call it a simulcast a lot. I love that.
Or the colorcast.
Colorcast. I love that word too. I dug that. Morty, in a previous conversation that we had here, and I want to ask you about this. So you talked about the energy that you guys felt when you were leaving late night and moving over to CBS. We referred to it, the morning show, the energy of knowing you were canceled, and so you could kind of take off the guardrails and things. We've certainly seen it in other places too. I mean, of course, I look at Conan's last 2 weeks of Tonight shows, and they were fantastic. We've seen that when the end is coming, and how things get better, and there's more of a the circus type atmosphere and things. Colbert's got it for about 10 months now, and then you look at those two events that I just talked about. Bill Carter wrote books on both of those two. Do you think that this next 10 months it could be the circus time that we have seen in those two other instances? Are we seeing another emergence of that kind of excitement in late night?
I certainly hope so. I
Me
mean,
too.
it could save the genre. Uh, I do, and I think Colbert is absolutely more than capable of doing it. I think what you got to understand is there's going to be new management, so let's see how lenient they are, uh, and then every one of those people have to get a job. So let's see how
Yeah, you're
fearless they
responsible
are.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. Years ago, Pat Sajak got a show, late night show on CBS, before Letterman had one.
Mhm.
And I had interviewed Sajak in San Francisco years earlier with he and Vanna. They came into the studio. And I was so surprised at how snarky he was and how
Yeah.
edgy he was when he was with me. And so when he got that show, I said, he's got a good shot. Because if he brings that snarkiness and that attitude to that show, he's going to succeed. And he went to CBS and he played it nice. He
I,
blew it.
I knew him only as a guest, and he was always a good guest.
Mm-hmm.
He always came on, and he always scored as a guest. And I saw the snarkiness once, personally. It must have been about, let's see, my daughter's now 23. At the time, she was probably, it was probably 10, 13 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. I was at a Dodger game, and I ran into Sajak. And his first response, his first thing that he said to me was, "Oh, you're still in the business?" And I was just like, "Well, fuck you," It's like Pat
Well,
Sajak,
hold on,
and
Morty. You didn't just know him as a guest. You also knew him as a punchline, and perhaps that might be a little receipt for that as well.
yes, I agree with you. But I don't think Letterman ever made too much fun of Pat Sajak because he kind of respected the guy.
Yeah.
I just think
There were
Sajak,
lines. There were times where say the Sajak show was definitely referenced, though, and
Sajak had more ability than he ever showed.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
oh yeah,
And what he opted for is, I'm going to be the good guy. I'm going to make money in this business. I'm going to be a success in this business, rather
Yeah.
than say, I mean, let's face it. Dave was a smash because he threw all caution to the wind because he had been in the worst possible place. I mean, when you lose a morning show on NBC, you figured, hey, I'm through. It's over with.
Yep.
And when
I
you
Yeah, but he also thought he was through 10 years into the run of late night.
Of course. Shecky used to talk to me about how unhappy Dave was, And Meryl, when I've interviewed Meryl, she said, I'll talk to her about that period in her life. She goes, oh, that's old boyfriend stuff, And she said to me, I had to leave him because I had to go home with him every night, and he was miserable about a show I had helped write.
Yeah, but
You know?
something, in his defense, and I've said this to Mike many times.
We're talking about Meryl Marco, folks, for those who
No,
don't know.
I'm in Letterman's defense.
Yeah.
Letterman never got pissed at the staff. He would never
Yeah.
say, "Oh, this joke sucked," and Steve O'Donnell wrote it. What the fuck is he doing? He would never do that. He would always get pissed at himself.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of times for me more painful to see a guy like that who had everything going for him, just being miserable.
But my experience, I was outside the studio in the hallway, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the show was over, because I was waiting for Shecky or whatever. And out comes Letterman, and he went into a dressing room that was right next to the studio. I don't know, I think that was his ancillary dressing room.
Yes.
And he looked so miserable.
Oh yeah.
He
Oh,
looked
He
like
used
the
to
world
storm
had
out.
come to an end when he walked out.
Yep.
And I went, is that what making it in show business is all about?
And, guess who the first guy that had to knock on that door and have him open it? Me.
Oh God.
Yep.
He used to throw things around too, didn't he?
On occasion he did. Yep.
So you were good at dodging. That's why you lasted so long.
Exactly.
I want to marry the last two things that we talked about, though. Like, one of the things, I don't know who it was that I talked to now. I can't pull it from my brain. Talking about Pat Sajak and then also Chevy Chase, both of them. One of the things that I've heard about both of them is that when they took the gig of the late night host, they didn't come in with the tireless, backbreaking work ethic that the people who have survived and did this, like Conan, Letterman, and so many of the other ones that have survived came in. They came in, they thought it was kind of almost a cushy gig, and I don't quite want to make that definition, but that was that person's, that was their take on Pat, is that he came in and he did not come in with, geared up for war and constant the way that some of these other war horses in late night brought to it. So it might have been an attitude thing as well.
I'm going to go back.
How much preparation was he used to? He'd be given a card. A penny saved is a penny earned. Okay, Vanna.
I'll tell you something.
There wasn't much preparation on Pat Sajak's resume.
Let's go back for a second before Carson even. My favorite at the time when I was growing up, and somebody who I kind of based what I did on, was Parr. Parr was amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean,
amazing.
You tuned in that show to see what happened to Parr today. It was, and I learned that intimacy was important, that if you were really totally honest with your audience in a brutal way, that they would like you.
Yeah. I was watching an interview that he did just a couple of weeks ago with Judy Garland.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And it was amazing to see how he handled her, how this fragile human being, and on a late night talk show, and he was so empathetic and handled it so wonderfully. He was incredible. He was incredible and funny.
So what are you doing with your life these days?
Trying to sell some real estate.
Yeah, you went into real estate. My father was a real estate broker.
I didn't know that. That's funny. I enjoy it. It's you age out of television. When I turned 65,
well, my father was a musician, and then violins kind of went to the bottom of the musical barrel, and so he had to find some way to support his young son and his wife, and he went into real estate.
Yeah. Well, when I hit 65, it was kind of like, all right, I'm going up for jobs. One, they're paying a hell of a lot less than I was used to making. Two, they were looking for, people who had younger ideas and younger point of view than I did. What they imagined I did. But it was interesting because in those days, my kids were young. I was 48 when my first child was born. So, well into my 60s and now 70s, I'm pretty attuned with what the youth and what the demographic that they desire is seeking.
Yeah.
More than I ever was as a bachelor running around New York trying to pick up women.
Well, you were a world-class bachelor.
I tried my best.
What was the first job you did after you left Letterman? You went somewhere else, and I'm trying to remember.
I had two overall deals. One I had at ABC. Which was given to me by Mike Ovitz. When I got fired from the Letterman show, I remember he fired me in his office. I walked back to my office, and the first call I made was to Mike Ovitz, who at the time was running Disney.
Yeah, one of the biggest agents, by the way, in the business as well, but he was running Disney,
And he said to me, good, we got you out of there. He goes, now you can become the Lorne Michaels of ABC. And I said, okay, I'll take it. Simultaneously, my girlfriend became the president of ABC Entertainment, Jamie Tarsus. May she rest in peace. Yeah. So Ovitz said, I got to wait a while before I give you the deal because it's going to reek of, favoritism. So I said, all right. So I waited a good year before I got my deal at ABC because they didn't want it to look. And even then, even though it was Ovitz who predated Jamie and gave me the deal, everybody wrote that it was because my girlfriend ran the network that I got the deal. So I had a 2-year deal there, paid very handsomely, and I did 3 pilots in those 2 years. I got 1 show on the air, so I had a pretty 3 or 4 shows, I don't know, but I had a pretty good track record for a non-writing producer. But it was just too much of a hassle having me and my girlfriend together.
Were you still a girlfriend? Was she still your girlfriend at the end?
Yes.
Because I would
yes.
say she wasn't, if you broke up during that time, that period would have had to be terrible at work. You know.
Towards the very tail end, we had broken up, but it was very much at the end of it.
Yeah.
Because I remember how awkward it was that I had to pitch her shows. Was not fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I left and I had a 3-year deal at Carsey and Werner,
Oh, okay. Mhm.
which I did. I did a few shows there, and
Yeah.
then I went on. Then after 5 years of deals, I kind of went on my own, and took whatever came my way. But to answer your question directly, now that you mention it, the first gig I took after Letterman, the very first gig, was I was offered to produce the Chris Rock show on HBO.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, Chris Rock was a respectable comedian, but I always looked at it as a bit of a step down coming from Letterman to be doing Chris Rock.
Yeah.
He wasn't the Chris Rock he is today or has been for the last 20 years.
You're right.
So I passed on that, but they asked me to be a consulting producer. So I consulted on that, and Hal Gurney did the pilot, and a lot of the old writers. I brought in Louis C.K., who didn't want to do it, and I said, Louis, this is going to be a great job for you. So I brought Louis in as a writer.
Great writer. Great writer.
Steve O'Donnell was already on the staff, and he was great. So it was a lot of the people I was used to working with, and I basically worked with Chris on, how to do interviews and all that stuff.
Right.
And he didn't listen to me very much, but he was great.
Yeah.
He was great.
Yeah,
I adore him.
It's a shame they don't listen to you because you're one of the better minds that has worked this business.
Thank you, Alex. It's very nice of you to say.
I always think of you fondly as well. And
As I do you.
Shecky always used to talk about you,
Yeah,
And-
Shecky was something else.
Yeah.
It's funny, you mentioned Shecky before, and I was thinking, Letterman never got Shecky.
Yep.
It's one of the great regrets that I have
Never
to this
got
day
Shecky?
because he never understood what Shecky was about.
Yep.
He knew that there was a savant there and that he was brilliant at finding whatever the writers wanted him to find. But he never he would always say to me, "What does Shecky do?
Yeah.
What does Shecky do?"
He wore the Elvis outfit, for crying out loud.
Exactly right. Exactly. I have a photo of that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Mark Malkoff and I had a phone conversation yesterday about this exact subject. Mark Malkoff is the host of the Carson podcast and now Inside Late Night for LateNighter.com. He's the host of that podcast as well. And he and I were talking about some of the things that are going on, and Shecky's name came up. He's got a 3-hour interview with Shecky that from years ago that we're trying to figure out how to repackage and put out. But we talked about this, and one of the things that Shecky said to him, and he said it to me, and I'm sure, Alex, you'll remember this as well. One of the things that Shecky said, the reason that he never really created any ripples in the water, the way that some other staffers unfortunately did, was because he knew how to stay in his lane.
Yeah.
And so all the things that he was into, and he was very into them, and we all saw that at the funeral.
Friend Richard Sheckman. Yeah.
Rick Sheckman, our boy. Letterman Podcast would not exist without him. He was my North Star until he passed. And as far as I'm concerned, if I have any credibility at all, it was given to me by him. He helped me so much, and I love him so much. I think about him every day.
You know how many years he and I were friends?
Well, you guys were best friends, and I mean, yeah,
5 years.
Yep. And the thing that Rick said is that he knew how to stay in his lane.
Yeah.
So yeah, the people there didn't know necessarily, the superior cinephile that he was, the expert level of the things that he was.
He had so many other things going on, his licensings and his businesses, that he never asked for crazy raises. He would get a standard raise whenever a standard raise came about.
Or title bumps.
You know what I always sense from Shecky? He just enjoyed being part of that family.
He loved being part of any family. It's absolutely the truth. And you know something? He was in a consultancy role. He was extremely valuable. He had an encyclopedic knowledge.
Yeah.
He had an encyclopedic knowledge of every guest's name, of everybody who did anything on that show. When we used to do things like stupid pet tricks, I wouldn't pick the pets unless Shecky was with me in the control room during the rehearsal. I would always say, "Can you get Shecky down here, please?" And Shecky would always go, do this one first, this one second, this one third. I go, okay. He would always order them. He would always be the guy that would say, use this one. I promise you it'll work. I never did it without Shecky all those years. It's funny.
Do you feel that at any point Shecky really knew the full breadth of his talent?
Yes,
You
he
feel
did.
he did.
He did. He
Yeah.
did. But he was not a braggart.
Yeah.
As Mike said, he stayed in his lane. He never made waves. He was quiet. He never looked to be friends with Dave. He never,
He just wanted to sit in his office with his tapes and his old films and
I would always say to Letterman, believe me, you don't know what Shecky does.
you know
Shecky,
something? For a guy who didn't understand what Shecky did, he was at the end, I think, the third longest employee
oh yeah,
at Letterman.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
He was up there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep.
Hey, listen, it's so great to talk to you, Morty. I hope
Anytime, Alex, you know that.
We should do this again. In fact, bring Mike into it and let's do a mashup again. I love this.
I love
absolutely
you both. So let me know whenever.
That is Robert Morton, ladies and gentlemen, former executive producer of Late Night with David Letterman and then The Late Show with David Letterman. And Mike Chisholm, who is the current producer of the Letterman Podcast, I guess, executive producer of the Letterman Podcast.
I wear many hats.
And me, I'm Alex Bennett. I used to be a big shot. So, Anyway, thanks, Morty. Thanks, Mike. Nice talking
Alex.
to you
Thanks,
guys.
Alex, as always.
Bye-bye.
Overcoat and underpants.